at a customer's home, doing a patch that they already hung themselves. They put a few extra screws in. I always like to go through and scrape the areas first, get all the roughness off. Then we're gonna follow through with the fiberglass, just like in the last videos. Fiberglass mesh tape. Tape up all of the seams. This one kind of goes jagged, so we got 2 pieces. Put a few extra screws in to tighten it up, as this is a big patch, so we need to add screws. I like to always go through and press down the fiberglass. We are working next to the angle here, so I always like to put some masking tape or something so we don't get more angle. Basically set yourself up for the first coat. Got that all fiberglass ready, so I'm gonna go out and mix some 5-minute mud. Patches inside, the homeowner was there, so I just explained the patch. Electrician cut that hole in the ceiling for access. The electrician kind of just put a couple screws in it to hold it up, but I actually had to back out the patch and throw some wood in it and then throw extra screws in it to tighten it up. So now I'm outside. I already got it all taped ready, so now I'm ready to do first coat. The patch is about a 2 by 3 foot patch, so I'm going to need at least, let's say, a half a pan, 3/4 pan of hot mud. Same thing like the last videos. A 5-minute drywall is always a step process. Get it framed, sheetrocked, screwed in, tape, first coat, second coat, slick it out, and then it's ready for texture. So we're on our first coat step process here. I just put a good healthy sponge and a half of water in here. Let's mix it up, toss and turn, toss and turn, toss and turn. Just like in the last videos, it's always the same process. If you watch plenty of these videos, pretty soon you're gonna be out in the field making money doing drywall repairs, because I'm basically giving you all the tips and all the secrets to my success. It's an easy process once you figure it out. It is an art. But just like any other job, it's just a tedious step process. And once you do it over and over and over, it's just rinse and repeat process for us. Wake up, hang, tape, first coat, second coat, texture. Clean up, go to the next one. Hang, tape, first coat, second coat, texture. Every job's different, but the same process applies to them all. So I got my first coat mud there. It's pretty thick, as you can tell. It's sticking to my knife. It's not soup or water. We want a nice heavy mud. You don't want it too heavy. You still want to be able to use it. You just don't want to make a big mess dropping mud everywhere. So I'm going to take my 12-inch knife. Like I said, I always like to use my 12-inch knife and my 6-inch knife for my go-to knife. So I don't carry a bunch of knives in the truck getting damaged and ruined. I just have 2 good quality knives that I use consistently. But let's go inside to the patch that's taped. The tape's starting to peel down, so sometimes you just have to do this number. Whenever I deal with hot muds and fiberglass, I always like to strike in the tape. That fills in, I push down hard. That fills in the gaps, basically like a pre-fill method. Some guys like to do pre-fill before they do tape, but we're using this fiberglass. If you push down hard enough, it gets inside the grooves. Now that's all pressed in nicely. Now we're gonna first coat. I'm basically gonna use most of my material that's in my pan, just get it on nice and heavy. Nice and heavy. Nice and heavy. You notice I'm not dropping a lot of mud. I'm just taking it easy, nice and slow. Keep the mud on the patch and off the ground. Now it's coated heavy. I just like to go through on the sides and same thing. Feather it. Feather it. Feather it. I have a little bit of mud in my pan still, so I'm just going to put it on the center so it really fills in that center. And now I'm going to follow through and I'm just going to coat it heavy. Coat it heavy. Coat it heavy. I have a little bit of mud here, so I'm just going to even take it out a little further past the actual tape seam. If you pull scratches like that, you just follow through in the other direction and fill it in. There you go. That's a nice healthy first coat. We're going to let that dry at least 4 to 5 minutes and then come in here and check on it and wet slick it out. So the second coat, it's about half a pan, a little less than first coat. And I just did a nice healthy 1 sponge full of water. We're going to mix that up and see how it is. 1 sponge, half a pan should do it. Usually a full pan and around 2 sponges, half pan's 1 sponge, so it's pretty balanced out. Mix it up, toss and turn, just like the other videos. Mixing the hot mud's the same. This is a 5-minute mud, so I like to mix it up thoroughly, quickly. And the second coat, of course, has to be a little creamier. I like to just add a little more water just to cream it up. Make it nicey nice, like we say, nicey nice. Once we get this all mixed up, toss and turn, I like to also scrape the sides of the pans. Get all that dry powder off the sides, get it all mixed up. The texture there is like a heavy pancake batter, so nicey nice. It's a little thinner than first coat, but not as thick. And we're gonna go in the first coat, so this first coat's setting up, so I like to take my damp sponge, hit the edges, Go through the center, let it all down. Take my cleaning 6, trowel down, get all the excess materials out. Trowel it down, trowel it down, trowel it down. You're just pushing down hard to take off the excess materials. We're not trying to build a hump on the wall, we're just trying to fill in the areas that need to be filled in. You can cross it off either way, horizontal, vertical, whatever it takes to take off that excess mud. This is a 5-minute mud, so you want to catch it between the 4 to 6 minute mark. Slicked it all out. I like to go over it with the sponge again. You can see all that excess material I took off. Since I did have to walk, I already mixed the second coat of the pan of mud, so my second coat's ready to go. Same thing as the first coat, but not as heavy. I just like to put my first coat of mud on, then I put on my second coat. Second coat. Second coat. I like to get the materials completely on the patch. With the second coat, I always like to go past my first coat. So it fills in, makes a nice patch. Same thing with that, feather to side, feather to side, feather to side. Now I go through with my knife again, just trowel it down. Trowel it down. Trowel it down. Trowel it down. Doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to wet sponge it and slick it out, but we're going to check out the second coat mud. It is set up. So I like to sponge the sides just like we did with the first coat. Hit the sides, blend in, so there's not a sharp edge, so it blends in nicely. Then I go through the center of the patch. Add a little bit of water, add a little bit of water. This is gonna make my wet slicking technique go smooth. Same thing like the first coat. We slick it out, we take off the excess mud. We're pushing down as we move along. Push along. Taking off the excess material. I like to get the excess material on it so we're not humping up the ceiling. Sometimes I like to give it a little more water, and then I'll cross it off the other way so that if there is any dips or waves, you'll get it with it crossing it off. Cross it off, cross it off. There you go. Nicey nice. I double check it with my sponge, make sure the edge is gone. We're gonna let that set up a few minutes while we go mix up our texture. And here we got what's called a skip trowel. The skip trowel is going one direction. We always look if it's going this way, that way, or diagonal. This skip trowel is going this way, so that's the direction we're going to do with the skip. Our texture ready, like on my last videos, I always take my sanding block before any texture job, and I just slightly sand my knife. A lot of guys like to use a big texture knife like this, or even a bigger knife, but for these patch jobs, I use a nice straight 6-inch. I have more knife control. I can get the pattern of the texture, because sometimes skip trowels are heavier, some are lighter, so with a nice straight 6-inch, nice clean straight 6-inch, you can mimic the pattern and match, almost get a 99.9% match. So nice clean 6 like that. Just like any job, I like to always open up my bucket. I just used it on another job so there's no water on top, but I kind of like to whip it up. I always take my beater and I just give it a quick whip. That's just in case there's any clumps on top or anything. It just makes it nice and creamy and it makes a nice flow. This is not a large patch, so I'm just going to need probably a quarter of a pan of mud, or just a little more, just so I can get a nice scoop action with my 6. It is a sunny day out, so I like to leave a lid on my bucket, and sometimes I always like to bring in a damp sponge just in case there's a mistake and I need to sponge off the area. So let's go inside and get this area textured. Textured, as you can tell, it's thinner than the second coat mud. It's just like it's still a heavy pancake batter, but we're going to go in there and we're going to get this textured up. Like my last videos, I like to set on the skip trowel. You like to check the direction. I like to start on the outside edges of any skip trowel. What we do is either you can scoop or you can dip. Scoop or dip. The scooping technique is more advanced. The dipping technique would be more of a beginner. But this is a heavier skip trowel, so I like to scoop it out, and I start on the outside edge and I just skip. Skippy skip, nicey nice. Skippy skip, nicey nice. So you can follow it all one direction, but this I'm just basically meeting in the middle, going back and forth, back and forth. This is a patch on the ceiling, so I'm right up to the patch. With the angle, sometimes I come off the angle like this, come off the angle, come off the angle. Sometimes it's hard to do the skip trowel on the angle, so then we just skip it in. Sometimes you get these marks, you just cut that off, and then you can do a nice transition skip to blend it out. Sometimes you go that direction and it'll fade it into the existing. Fade it in the existing. light spots like this, you can always just put a double skip on it. So I'm on a ladder, so I'm trying to reach out as far as I could without having to get off the ladder. And any of these start marks, you can always cut them off, Some guys like to even trowel them down. And you just take some more skip trowel and blend it out so it fades out to the existing, fades out to the existing. Little light here, let's add a little more. Then we like to go up there and we like to knock it down. Lightly knock it down. Knock it down. Knock it down. Like all my videos, I like to take a step back and take a look at it from a different angle. We're going to move the ladder over here so we can reach out more and kind of feather out this end a little better. Feather it out. So it feathers out. It's a nice new to old texture transition that blended in nicely. So check my angle, check my angle, check my angle. Make sure everything's knocked down nice. There's a fire alarm here, so we're just going to go up to the fire alarm, make it nice so you don't see a line. That's pretty much it. Taking my masking off my angles, so now we don't have no material on the angles, so you don't have to paint the angle. So that's pretty much it. A nice skip trowel patch done within an hour.